Hi MMA fans and welcome to another MMA fighting video. No MMA fan could stay indifferent when Khabib Nurmagomedov hung up the gloves. Staying undefeated and dominating everyone the UFC had put in front of him, fans were almost sure no one would be like him in the future. The argument was reasonable. Who could replace such a dominant champion that never lost a fight in his professional career? However, just like Maradona got Messi as a successor in football, who later became even better than him, we might be looking at a fighter who could become an even better version of Khabib. This young, undefeated prospect ran through anyone he fought up to this point and recently proved that he's also championship material. Meet the scariest, most complete version of Khabib, Usman Nurmagomedov. Who is Usman Nurmagomedov? With the first name Usman reminding of Kumaru, and his last name Nurmagomedov indicating on Khabib, it almost feels like this fighter was a lab specimen, a prototype created for one purpose only, to dominate the MMA stage. Would anyone be surprised that this fighter comes from the southern part of Russia, Dagestan? This part of Russia proved to be a factory of talented MMA fighters that rule combat sports worldwide. The people in Dagestan and Chechnya are built differently physically and mentally. Khamzat Chimaev once said that only women don't wrestle there in the village where he comes from in Chechnya. If the same mentality and values apply to the town of Kyzylyurt, Dagestan, the birthplace of Umar, then we should not be surprised that he started wrestling when he was only 8 years old. Was he wrestling little bears like Khabib did when he was a child? We don't know that for sure. What we know is that Usman was following in his older brother's footsteps, a UFC fighter who's also undefeated and arguably as dominant, Umar Nurmagomedov. His older brother will be the reason why Usman started training Muay Thai at an early age too. That explains his deadly knee combos from a clinch, but we'll get to that later. With time, wrestling and Thai boxing were not satisfying the appetites of this hungry youngster, so he moved to Makhachkala, the capital of Dagestan, where he was trained by his uncle and legendary coach, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov. As the old proverb says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. In Makhachkala, Usman had the opportunity to train with his cousin Khabib Nurmagomedov and the current lightweight champion Islam Makhachev, not to mention all the other elite fighters who were also part of that group. Usman was introduced to Sambo in this gym, the Russian martial art that dominates MMA. By the way, if you like our video so far, don't forget to press the like button. Fighting style. Usman's style is primarily based on Sambo, a martial art whose specifics are the closest you can get to a real MMA fight. Sambo is so lethal because it was a combination of the most effective martial arts today: jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and judo, implementing the best techniques of each of these styles into one superior martial art of Sambo. It focuses on takedowns, a variety of throws, sweeps, and most importantly, submissions, techniques that can be found in the three most essential martial arts we just mentioned. Combat Sambo, on the other hand, besides grappling techniques, includes strikes and kicks as well. That's the reason why Usman could quickly emerge and make a transition to MMA. The scary thing about this fighter is that he's not only a Sambo specialist, but his Muay Thai credentials make him a superior fighter in every area of the sport. Sambo fighters like Usman prefer the chain wrestling style of fighting. The difference between Sambo wrestlers and classic wrestlers is consistency. The American wrestlers tend to look for the perfect opportunity to duck under and shoot for a takedown. If the takedown is unsuccessful, they wait for another good opportunity to try and execute it again. Sambo wrestlers, on the other hand, prefer chain wrestling. They would constantly move forward, keeping their opponent under pressure, executing one takedown after another. If their first takedown is unsuccessful, they immediately shoot for another and another until the opponent is tired and finally gives up his position. This technique is used mainly by Islam Makhachev, which is the style Khabib preferred as well. However, what makes Usman so scary and different than the two is that he is as good on his feet as on the ground. If Usman goes for chain wrestling and fails, he can finish the fight standing. His Muay Thai is so deadly. Once Usman gets you in a clinch, you can kiss your liver goodbye because he'd kick your organs with his knees until your body gives up. You can ask Ruslan Toyakov and Manny Muro, two of Usman's previous opponents who felt the power of his knees getting knocked out by body shots. Usman is not just a technical hire in every aspect of MMA, but a brilliant fighter with a high fighting IQ. He is 183 centimeters, about 6 feet tall, which is relatively tall for a lightweight. He controls the distance in the fight, picking his opponent apart with various kicks and punches. If he realizes he's in danger, he can easily switch to his wrestling and Sambo credentials and take the fight to the ground. Being as tall as he is, he can keep the pressure without getting hit. But if a fighter keeps the pressure on Usman, he's also an excellent counter-striker. Such was the example of the Ukrainian fighter Roman Golovanov, who kept the pressure on Usman only to be met with counter punches and get knocked out in the first round. Usman is so complete as a martial artist with various techniques that it's impossible to figure him out and know what fighting style is best to defeat him. He throws spinning back kicks, lead high kicks, spinning back fists, knees from a distance, and if you dive for a takedown, he takes your neck deep into a guillotine and forces you to tap. Khabib was a perfect example of a chain wrestler. His pressure, wrestling, and ground and pound were too much for anyone to withstand. Many people believe that Usman is a scarier version of Khabib because, besides wrestling and superior ground and pound, Usman is as dominant on his feet, making him even more complete of a martial artist than his cousin Khabib. This leads us to the question, why is Usman Nurmagomedov not in the UFC yet? On November 18, 2022, Usman fought the Bellator legend Patrick Pitbull. Not only did he win the fight, but he dominated the Brazilian fighter so much that it didn't give any headache to the judges about how to score the fight. His current coach, Javier Mendez, will comment on that fight, phrasing Usman's victory simply putting it as, he made it look easy. Usman himself shared his thoughts after the fight, and he seemed very happy representing his country. Usman said to Yahoo Sports, "My name will be written in the history books forever. There was a time nobody would sign fighters from the Caucasus. Nobody knew where Dagestan is, where this part of Russia is located. Now we have 2 champions from Dagestan in the UFC, past and present. I want to be the first Bellator champion from Dagestan. Nobody will take this away from me. No matter what happens in the future, my name will be saved in the history books." If Bellator offered Usman their best fighter and Usman destroyed him already, that leads to the question, what's next for Usman Nurmagomedov? He's only 24 years old and already a Bellator champion. The most likely scenario we'll see in the future is moving to the most elite MMA organization in the world, the UFC. Why would he stay in Bellator and embarrass all those fighters when he has the potential to fight in the UFC and even become a UFC champion? He has Khabib as a mentor. He trains with elite fighters like Makhachev, Umar, Tugakov, and Khabib. Moving to America Kickboxing Academy, or AKA, to train under coach Javier Mendez would improve his skills even more, sharpening him towards becoming a UFC champion. However, there is a little problem concerning this move to the UFC, and it has nothing to do with skills or potential, but rather honor and loyalty. Honor is a big virtue in the Dagestani people's life. As previously mentioned, Usman is Khabib's cousin and the younger brother of UFC bantamweight fighter Umar Nurmagomedov. Khabib often corners Usman during his Bellator fights, and not only do they share an excellent bond, but Khabib used to coach him also. That may be precisely the reason why Usman never joins the UFC. Usman fights at lightweight, and if he was to join the UFC, he'd be going up against Islam Makhachev for the lightweight title. Islam recently beat Alexander Volkanovski, and Usman's career trajectory, on the other hand, has shown that he only wants to reach the very top. Hence, it may create a rift in the Nurmagomedov camp if he was to match against Islam. To put it in perspective, one of the reasons Khabib gave up his lightweight title in 2020 is so that he does not cross paths with Islam Makhachev. Usman will try to avoid a similar scenario when he joins the UFC. But Usman is only 24, and Makhachev is 31 years of age. Makhachev could fight at the top level for 5 years at most, and in 5 years, Usman would only improve and get to a level to be able to beat the best in the world. Throwing the 24-year-old Usman to the wolves just yet is not a smart idea. Fighting in a division ruled by monsters like Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Rafael Visiev, and others could be a challenging mountain to climb, and the young Dagestani lacks the experience to be able to challenge them just yet. However, a few years from now, he can undoubtedly be the one to succeed Islam Makhachev as the UFC lightweight champion of the world. There is a chance that Islam follows Khabib's path and gives up the belt for Usman to have a crack at it. Would Usman be as dominant as his cousin Khabib and the lightweight champion Islam Makhachev? We don't know that for sure, but if someone has the potential to succeed and even surpass Khabib, that is undoubtedly Usman Nurmagomedov. And what do you guys think? Do you believe Usman Nurmagomedov will become a UFC champion in the future? How do you rate Usman compared to Khabib and Makhachev? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you'd like to watch more content like this, please make sure to like and subscribe.